Enthusiasts love a hot hatch. If you ask me, a hot hatch has to do three things to really hit its marks. It's got to be fast, it's got to be practical, and it must be fun to drive.
The Honda is a car with a target on its back. As the reigning best performance car under $60,000 in Drive's Car of the Year awards, the Civic has a cabinet full of trophies, including the Nürburgring lap record for front-wheel drive machines. Hyundai's i30N also carries form here, having beaten the likes of Volkswagen's Golf GTI and the Subaru WRX in our first group test of Hyundai's first proper performance car. If Hyundai is the newest hot hatch brand, Peugeot is one of the oldest, having helped cement the segment's appeal with the iconic 205 GTI. Lighter and simpler than its rivals, the 308 GTI treads a different path to alternative machines, which use technology and brute force to win favour from enthusiasts. Lastly, Renault's Megane RS is the newest car here and the catalyst for this comparo. As the successor to one of the greatest hot hatches of all time, the latest Megane has the attention of enthusiasts from around the globe.
That's enough talk. It's time to hit the drag strip.
We took the quartet to Western Sydney International Dragway to see which one is the quickest to 100 k's an hour and over the standing quarter mile. While I got a feel for each of the models on the dragway, Drive's Mark Short ran the stopwatch over the cars, reporting back that a slippery surface on the day made it difficult to get sharp performance figures out of the group. Honda's Civic Type R is the most powerful car here, sending 228 kilowatts and 400 newton meters through the front wheels. It's also the most expensive, priced from $51,990 plus on-road costs. Like all of the cars here, the Honda drives its front wheels through a 6-speed manual transmission and limited slip differential.
The Civic is the most powerful car in the group, and it really feels it on the road. My favourite feature isn't the engine, but its gearbox. It has such a sweet little manual transmission shifter. Makes you think twice about ever considering a dual clutch automatic gearbox in your performance car. Truly, this is a beautiful thing to use.
At a glance, the Honda's 6.3 second dash to 100 k's and 14.2 second quarter mile time aren't particularly impressive, but we soon found out that that represents a very difficult time to beat. Priced from $45,990 plus on-road costs, Peugeot's lightweight 308 GTI undercuts the Type R by nearly 200 kilos. With a compact 1.6-litre turbo engine pumping 200 kilowatts and 330 newton meters to the front tyres, the 308 has the least powerful engine in this group.
With only 1.6 litres under the bonnet, the Peugeot 308 GTI has the smallest engine of this crowd, but it doesn't feel small in the performance stakes. Launches hard thanks to its Michelin tyres and really pulls well down the road. One thing I don't like about the Peugeot is its gear shift. It's really quite long, which does cost you a little bit of time on the drag strip, and it's not as satisfying to use as some of the other cars, but on the whole it's pretty good, and its brakes are amazing.
The Peugeot surprised us by being just 1/10 of a second slower to 100 k's than the Honda and 2/10 down over the quarter mile. Not bad at all. From the lightest car to the heaviest, the Hyundai i30N's 202 kilowatts and 378 newton meter peaks rank it towards the bottom of the pecking order for on-paper performance. Priced from just $39,990 plus on-road costs, the budget Hyundai is an underdog in more ways than one.
The Hyundai is the baby of the bunch, the newest car in the group, but it really can play with the big boys. A little bit of axle tramp off the line there, but then it hooks up nicely and you can put more than 200 kilowatts to work. Lovely little gear shift on the i30N, quite a big fan of that. Although you can feel that the car is heavier than its rivals, it does take a little bit more time to really get up and running.
The i30N returned a 6.5 second run to 100 before matching the Peugeot's 14.4 second time to the end of the drag strip. Lastly, the new Renault Megane splits the Peugeot and Honda with a 1.8 litre engine, priced from $44,990 plus on-road costs, plus another $1,500 for the must-have Cup option. The Megane RS sits right in the middle of this pack.
This Megane has a new 1.8 litre turbo engine. Let's see how it goes. Oh, minimal axle tramp, launches very nicely. This is a quick feeling car. Yeah, it's a smaller engine than before, but it still pulls really hard. Here we are across the line. Oh, that feels fast. I like it, I like it.
We definitely saw some surprises here. Just 4/10 of a second separates the fastest and slowest cars on the day. We expected the Honda to be the quickest car here, but we weren't expecting the Renault to be at the bottom of the timesheets. An underwhelming engine and slightly tricky gear shift hurt its performance in a straight line, returning figures of 6.7 seconds to the 100 and 14.6 seconds over the quarter mile. As we said, it was a tricky day to try and get traction, so you shouldn't really compare these with other times. Think of this merely as one snapshot for a chilly winter's afternoon. In any case, a hot hatch must be so much more than a drag car. It really has to be something that you'd live with in the real world. In that regard, the strongest argument against the all-conquering Honda might be its styling. We've met more than a few people who are seriously put off by the assortment of spoilers that looks at best distinctive and at worst juvenile. Thankfully, the interior is much easier to live with, thanks to supportive bucket seats, a functional if dated infotainment system, and excellent ergonomics. The Honda feels like the biggest car here, but oddly, it's the only one without a fifth seatbelt in the back. There's only room for you and 3 mates. Anonymous on the outside, you could be forgiven for thinking that the Peugeot is not a performance car, but its most polarizing element is the interior, where the brand serves up a dinky, low-set steering wheel, long-throw gear lever, and difficult-to-read gauges. While it looks impressive, we aren't convinced of the cabin's everyday usability. The Hyundai is much more straightforward. It looks and feels like the cheapest car here, with none of the Honda's boy racer appeal or the Peugeot's polished flair. But the basics are right, the driving position is excellent, and the infotainment screen serves up goodies like Apple CarPlay. What more could you need? Personally, I think the Renault is the best looking car of the bunch. Home to pumped up bodywork, menacing black wheels, and cool design touches such as those checkered flag fog lamps and a supercar style center exit exhaust. The interior brings supportive seats and an interesting portrait style tablet that is a bit fussy to use. And there are plenty of French quirks, such as needlessly obtuse cruise and radio controls. But the most important factor for me and many other customers is how these cars drive. Let's start with the Peugeot.
Peugeot's 308 GTI is one of the forgotten performance cars in Australia. It really doesn't have the same following as something like a Golf GTI or a Subaru WRX, and that's a real shame because it is a cracking car to drive. Reacquainting myself with the GTI this week, it is really quite a special car, and a lot of that comes down to its weight. It's very, very light, which makes it easy to throw around and really enjoy what it has to offer on the road. It rides quite comfortably, it's got a lot of composure on the road. It is also very quick. Don't love everything about the Peugeot. The fake sound that you can hear coming through the speakers is quite ordinary. I prefer authenticity from a performance car, and that does not usually arrive in the form of fake sound being pumped through the stereo. Likewise, the gear shift is quite long and loopy, but other than that, this thing is actually really sweet to drive. It's got quick steering, sharp reactions, and generally is a very, very impressive vehicle when you're out on the road.
What about the Honda?
Civic Type R has a lot of grunt, almost too much for the road at times. It really struggles to get all of that power down to the ground. It's very predictable. When you come up to a hairpin corner, you can really toss it in and it just does exactly what you expect, which for some people is great, but also means it's not the most fun thing to drive. It can be a little uneventful. It's a very planted, stable, fast car, the Civic Type R. Brilliant on a racetrack, a little less involving on the road. Coming down the hill, the Type R certainly does feel quite quick. It has brilliant brakes. The Brembo stoppers offer heaps of feel, and it's got an auto blipper for the manual that helps you get the best out of it as well. Yeah, it's an impressive car, the Honda, although I'm not as engaged as I could be. It doesn't really move around and entertain you the way that a really, truly great hot hatch can. The Honda feels quite planted, and it only really starts to move around when you're doing huge speeds on a track, which isn't what we're really doing today.
Time for the Renault.
All of these cars have variable drive modes, but the Megane's drive modes have more of an effect on its behaviour than the other vehicles. And that's because it has four-wheel steering. If you come into a corner, hit the brakes and tip in, you can feel the thing really rotate around the centre of the car. It can be a bit disconcerting because there are effectively two steering movements, one from when you tip in at the front and then another from the rear end as it comes around to meet where the steering wheel is going. It feels a little bit like oversteer. It's almost like the rear wheels are on casters or someone's pulled the handbrake halfway around a corner. The four-wheel steering is a strange sensation. It takes a little time to get used to it, but when you do, it really does give the car an agility that the others really struggle to match. You just hook it into a corner and it goes. Very little understeer, feels very pointy, although it is a little unpredictable because it's doing something that you're not doing yourself as a driver. It's a car that's trying to help you out and help you steer through the corner. It does feel a bit strange.
Let's have a go in the Hyundai.
The Hyundai i30 claimed a few big scalps in its first comparison tested drive, beating the Subaru WRX and Volkswagen Golf GTI to the performance car comparison test that we had a few months ago. And you know what? It's looking pretty good here too. This thing is a lot of fun. No, it's not the quickest car here, but it just feels right. It feels engaging. Yeah, it's a little bit heavier than the other cars, but it's got this real planted, dependable feel when you're out on the road. Yeah, the i30 feels really solid. It's got a great manual gear shift, really consistent weightings from the steering and the brakes. It's the only car here that doesn't have big name brakes like Brembo's, but they do a great job anyway. Not really too worried about them at all, and we've proven them on the track. I love that rapid fire gunshot that you get from the car when you change gears. It sounds immense, and it's not afraid to move around and wag its tail a little bit when you want to press on. It's a lot of fun to drive. Really am a big fan of the i30N.
This is a really tough group to sort out. All four cars have strengths and weaknesses which will sway the finishing order depending on your personal priorities. The Peugeot is the first one to go for me. It's an accomplished little car, but I can't live with its compromised ergonomics, awful fake sound in sports mode, and just a general lack of theatre. It's quite forgettable. Next to go is the Renault. I so wanted this car to be great. With the 1.8 litre engine lacks punch, the four-wheel steering system is engaging yet somehow artificial and inconsistent, and Renault's decision to drop from a 5-year warranty to a 3-year guarantee is a massive own goal when rivals are heading the other way. So, the Honda and Hyundai. One of these is the best manual hot hatch you can buy today. The other one is a seriously impressive machine available for a much sharper price. Ultimately, the Honda is the better car. More comfortable when you're dawdling around and more potent when you press on. It ticks a lot of boxes for hot hatch enthusiasts, but it would really want to for 52 grand. Hyundai's i30N gets a lot of stuff right for $12,000 less. No, it's not as quick or as polished as the Honda, but it is more fun to drive every day, and you've got plenty of cash left over for tyres and track days, which Hyundai is catering for with a bulletproof warranty and accessories such as brake ducts and semi-slick tyres. You could even give someone 10 grand to slap on a body kit that might make it look like the Honda. Not that you'd want to. If it were my money, I'd buy the Hyundai i30N. It keeps a huge chunk of change in your pocket while delivering everything you want from a hot hatch.